Springtime class is late in the day, losing all his concentration, wandering at its winding pathway, distracted by her perspiration.
Hormones and human nature lead me to question how it is that the promises that Zacharias made to deity are so easy to be kept by Estolians when they are afflicted by those two elements that urge the exploration of human sexuality. The answer to this question has never been successfully discovered, but it is believed by many Estolians that deity has as profound an effect on the sexual drives of young Estolians as deity has on the way that the nation itself hides from discovery. The Abaldo Reginald Zakarian, Capitulo 87.
And Xavier?
A single bead of sweat traces her shoulder.
Cousin Magdalena's acerbic voice barely intruded in his thoughts. All Xavier could think about was the mist-like perspiration on Danielle's shoulders. He watched a single drop of sweat bead up, ready to fall. It would follow the last 5 beads of sweat under the surface of the loose dress. If it was lucky, the bead would...
Xavier!
He cried out, tearing his attention away from Danielle's shoulders to look up into Cousin Magdalena's stern face.
What?
He asked. The other students in the room snickered. Heat crept across his cheeks and the tops of his ears. Whatever question she asked, his response was wrong. Cousin Magdalena closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Xavier knew what she was doing. She was counting to 10 and praying for deity's guidance, or at least intervention so she would not murder one of her pupils before the day was over. As he waited, Danielle and all the others were looking at him. The heat spread from his ears to the back of his neck. When she opened her eyes and focused on him, he could see that she was grateful he was giving her his full attention.
How many days is the average reign of a king of Estolia?
No wonder the others were snickering. That was one of the most basic facts that anyone memorized in school, mostly because it was such an easy number. It was the question that teachers often used to see if their pupils were paying attention. The heat of his face, ears, and neck spread to his entire scalp.
11,222.
What other question did he fail to hear? She nodded. When her eyes met his, he sensed a kindness that was almost more embarrassing than her earlier censure, especially when she told the assembled students they could leave, except for Xavier and Max, of course.
How can I help you, Xavier?
She asked him. Cousin Magdalena could not help him. If anything, her question made things worse. He shifted his position in the chair, uncomfortable. He tried not to think about the memory of watching the beads of sweat fall, never in a straight line, always zigzagging down her back.
Xavier?
She asked him again.
It is hot in here.
He blurted out. Her green-grey eyes met his steadily. She finally looked over at Max and asked him,
Can you enlighten me, Max?
Max looked at Xavier and then shrugged.
It really is hot in here.
She studied both boys before rising slowly to her feet.
I believe that the two of you should go see your uncle. I will call the temple and let them know that you are on your way.
They watched as she picked up the phone, gave the side crank a sharp turn, and then waited. After a minute, she spoke softly into the mouthpiece. Once she placed the receiver back onto the hook, she looked at the 2 young men and said,
He is expecting you immediately, so do not delay.
A single bead of sweat traces her shoulder slow. Heat he cannot forget catches him cheeks aglow.
Xavier was grateful to have an action plan. He and Max went out to the paddock and watched as their horses cantered over at Max's whistle. In minutes, they were saddled up, and the 2 boys were heading towards the hulking Mount Estoliana. Xavier looked up, smiling at his favorite view of the mountain. From this perspective, the rocky crown of Mount Estoliana was fairly narrow, and he could see parts of the slender crevasse between the minor and major peaks. Unfortunately, thinking about the crevasse reminded him of the seclusion suite situated there, where newly connected couples spent a week in seclusion. The memory of Danielle's chocolate-colored skin came back to him, and he suddenly wanted to taste the remembered drop of sweat. He leaned forward and urged Bishop to a canter. He might not be able to escape the erotic images in his mind, but he could at least cut short the time spent in the saddle. Soon they arrived at the temple entrance. One acolyte approached and took hold of both bridles, holding the horses while Max and Xavier dismounted, before leading them to the temple stables. The brothers mounted the temple steps 2 at a time, passing through the doors held open by 2 additional acolytes. Shortly after that, they entered their uncle's office. Aunt Laura was visiting him. The taut curve of her pregnancy was her most prominent feature. Xavier looked away from her, fighting against the thoughts he had been trying to escape since school started that morning. She stood up, bracing herself on the immense cracked conference table for a moment. She grinned at her husband and said,
"I believe, my love, that this one is anxious. I predict it will come early."
Her shapely hand patted the bulk of her abdomen. Uncle Antonio responded,
"You are not due for another 6 or 7 weeks, so I trust he or she will hold back for the day."
"At the very least,"
she said with a laugh. She grinned at the 2 brothers before saying,
"I'll be visiting Candace in the barracks kitchen when you need me."
Once she was gone, Antonio fixed them both with a stern expression. He sighed heavily and then gestured over to the cracked table.
"Have a seat, you two."
Arousal and distraction, compounded by his reading, forbidden this attraction.